Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The bell tolled across the grounds of Arcana Academy, its deep reverberating chime marking the end of another day. The sun dipped low behind the towering spires of the school, casting long shadows across the cobblestone pathway. Students hurried between the massive stone buildings, clutching books and magical artifacts, eager to escape the crisp evening air. Among them, Eric lingered, his robe trailing behind him as he strolled across the courtyard. He wasn't like the others. Most of them saw the end of the day as an opportunity to relax, to get lost in the trivialities of dorm life. But for Eric, the setting sun only meant one thing: more time to dig into the secrets of the academy. Arcana Academy was one of the most prestigious magical schools in the entire realm, specializing in elemental magic. It boasted some of the most brilliant professors and the finest students, all vying to perfect their craft. But lately, something felt off. Eric couldn't quite put his finger on it, but the air buzzed with the tension that even the most novice student could sense. Whispers traveled through the corridors, whispers of strange happenings at the rival school, Mystic Vale. The two academies had always been at odds, competing every year in the magical tournament, where students showcased their abilities in a series of duels. Rivalry was expected, but this felt different. Rivalry had begun to curdle into animosity. Explosions during training sessions, spells malfunctioning, and the most troubling rumors that someone had discovered forbidden magic. Eric pulled his cloak tighter as the cool breeze nipped at his skin. He glanced over his shoulder, ensuring no one was watching, and slipped away from the main path, disappearing into the maze-like corridors that led to the academy's vast library. His heart quickened with anticipation. He had heard about a secret section buried deep within the archives, holding knowledge that had been forbidden for centuries. He needed answers about the strange occurrences, about the growing hostility between the academies, and most importantly, about the war that seemed to be brewing beneath the surface. The library was nearly empty when Eric entered. The smell of old parchment and candle waxed thick in the air. A few students were scattered across tables, noses buried in spellbook. He nodded toward the librarian, an elderly woman with glasses perched on the tip of her nose, and made his way to the back of the room where the stacks towered high into the shadows. It was here that he found the hidden archive. Earlier that week, during a late-night study session, Eric had stumbled upon an obscure reference to the arcane war in one of his history books. It was a brief mention, almost a footnote, but it had piqued his curiosity. He had spent the next several nights scouring the library for more information, eventually uncovering a forgotten passageway behind a bookshelf. The hidden chamber contained ancient tomes, long since banned from the curriculum. He slid into the narrow opening, lighting his wand with a soft glow. Dust motes danced in the air as he scanned the spines of the old books, searching for anything that might give him the answers he sought. After what felt like hours, he found it, an old leather-bound tome nearly crumbling with age. The title read, "The Rise and Fall of the Arcane War." His fingers trembled as he opened the book, flipping through pages of dense text and detailed illustration. The story was a dark one, recounting a time when the magical academies had waged a devastating war against each other. At the heart of it all was a forbidden spell known as the essence of the arcane, a spell so powerful it could control the very fabric of magic itself. According to legend, the spell had been sealed away after nearly destroying the realm, but the scars of the war remained. Eric's heart pounded as he read the final passage. The arcane war had not ended because of a treaty or a victor. It had ended because both sides feared the uncontrollable power of the essence of the arcane, and now it seemed someone had found it again. The sound of footsteps jolted Eric from his thoughts. He snapped the book shut and extinguished the light from his wand, listening intently. For a moment, all was silent. Then a voice whispered from the darkness, "Eric, there." He let out a sigh of relief as Lena stepped into the faint light of the arcade. Her face was drawn with worry, her dark eyes searching his for an explanation. "You've had been missing for hours," she said, her voice low. "Eric, what are you doing back here?" "Finding answers," Eric replied, motioning to the book in his hand. "Something's wrong, Lena. I think the rivalry between Arcana and Mystic Vale is more than just rivalry now. I think someone still's planning another war." Lena's brows furrowed, and she stepped closer to write a war that said impossible. The academies wouldn't. Listen to me, Eric interrupted, flipping the book open to the page on the essence of the arcane. This isn't just about the tournament anymore. There's ancient magic involved, something that was never meant to be found again. Lena scanned the page, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. The essence of the arcane, she whispered. Sure, but this magic was sealed away. No one would dare. Someone would, Eric said grimly, and I think it's someone from Mystic Vale. Lena, eyes widened. We have to tell the professors. They need to know what's happening. Eric shook his head. We can trust anyone. If the professors are involved, they won to believe that. We need to figure out who's behind this and stop them before it's done too late. Lena bit her lip, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to be watching them. Sarah, and how exactly are we supposed to do that? We need to find Marcus, Eric said. He'll know how to help. The three of them met in secret later that night, hidden in the shadowy alcove of the old alchemy lab. Marcus, with his wild hair and ever-present satchel of potions, looked less than thrilled about the whole situation. You were telling me that someone's about to start a magical war using an ancient spell that could destroy everything, Chani said, his voice dripping with skepticism. And you want me to help you stop it? Pretty much, Eric replied, glancing nervously toward the door. Look, I know it sounds crazy, but the evidence is all there. Something big is happening, and if we don't stop it, we don't stand a chance. Lena finished ere Mystic Vale is already preparing for war. We've heard the rumors students practicing dark magic secret duels happening in the forest. It's all connected. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. Fine, but if we are going to do this, we need a plan, and we need to be careful if they find out. We rewind to them. They won, Taya, Eric said, his voice steady. We'll stop them before they have the chance. The days that followed were a whirlwind of secret meetings and careful planning. The tension between the academies continued to escalate, with duels breaking out in the halls and students openly challenging one another in the name of their respective school. The once friendly rivalry had turned bitter, and it was only a matter of time before the first spell was cast in what would become the Second Arcane War. Eric, Lena, and Marcus worked tirelessly to gather information. They uncovered evidence that pointed to Professor Melcher, the headmaster of Mystic Vale, as the mastermind behind the conspiracy. Melcher was a respected figure known for his mastery of summoning magic, but beneath his calm exterior lay a thirst for power. He had been searching for the essence of the arcane for years, and now it seemed he had finally found it. The trio knew they were running out of time with the magical tournament only days away. Melchor's plan would soon be set into motion. Eric had one last idea, a desperate plan to retrieve the Staff of Equilibrium, an ancient artifact said to be the only weapon capable of neutralizing the essence of the arcane. It was hidden in the Forbidden Forest, a treacherous place filled with magical traps and creatures. But they had no other choice. We have to go tonight, Eric said, his voice urgent as they gathered their supplies. If they wait any longer, we'll be too late. Lena and Marcus nodded, their faces pale but determined together. They set out into the night, the weight of the world resting on their shoulders. The forest was darker than Eric had anticipated. The canopy above was so thick that it blotted out the moonlight, leaving only faint beams filtering through the gaps in the tree. Every step felt like a journey into the unknown, with the eerie quiet amplifying their unease. The trio pressed forward, each of them alert, hands ready to cast defensive spells if needed. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper, and the sense of foreboding weighed heavier with each passing moment. Marcus was the first to break the silence, his voice low. We're sure the staff even exists, right? We are not just walking into the forest to get eaten by a magical beast for nothing. Eric shot him a sharp glance. It exists. I've read about it in several different sources. It's on our only chance to stop Melcher before he unleashes the essence of the arcane. Lena, walking a step behind them, added quietly, Sirai. I trust Eric. If he says it's sold out here, then it's sold out here. Besides, what other choice do we have? Their footsteps crunched on the forest floor, dry leaves and twigs snapping beneath their boots. The path they followed seemed to twist and turn, almost as if it had a mind of its own, leading them deeper into the unknown. Just when it felt as though the darkness might swallow them entirely, the trees began to thin out, and ahead of them, a faint glow appeared. "There, Eric," whispered, pointing toward the light. "That has to be it." The trio approached cautiously, and as they stepped into the clearing, they saw it. A towering stone altar stood in the center, bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Atop the altar, resting in a cradle of ancient stone, was the staff of equilibrium. It was a slender, silver staff, intricately carved with runes that shimmered faintly in the light. The air around it seemed to hum with power, as if the staff itself was alive. Lena took a step forward, but Eric grabbed her arm. "Tro, wait, there's bound to be traps. We need to be careful." Marcus nodded and knelt down, pulling a vial from his satchel. He uncorked it and poured the contents onto the ground, revealing a thin layer of shimmering blue powder that spread across the earth like a mist. The powder clung to invisible lines of magic, outlining the traps that had been set around the altar. "Good call," Marcus muttered. "There's a spell web all around it. Looks like if we trigger one, the whole place goes up in flame." Eric's heart pounded in his chest. "Can't you disarm it?" Marcus smirked. "You doubt me." Carefully, he began to work, muttering incantations under his breath and using various tools to dismantle the magical trap. It was delicate, precise work, and every second felt like an eternity. Eric and Lena held their breath, watching as Marcus slowly made his way through the web of spells. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Marcus straightened up and wiped the sweat from his brow. "Taladan we clear." Eric wasted no time. He stepped forward, approaching the altar with reverence. The closer he got, the more he could feel the power emanating from the staff. It was almost overwhelming, as if the staff was testing him, judging whether he was worthy to wield it. He reached out, his fingers grazing the cool metal of the staff, and in that instant, the power surged through him. The world around him seemed to blur for a moment as the staff connected with his magic, amplifying it tenfold. Eric staggered back, clutching the staff tightly, his heart racing. He could feel it now, the balance, the power to control and neutralize magic. The staff of equilibrium was more than just a weapon. It was the embodiment of order in the magical world. "We've got it," Eric said, his voice barely a whisper. "And now we have to get back before Melcher makes his move." But as they turned to leave, a figure stepped out from the shadows at the edge of the clearing. Professor Melcher stood before them, his dark robes billowing in the wind, a wicked smile curling on his lip. "Leaving so soon," he said, his voice smooth and mocking. "Derek had hoped you would retrieve the staff for me. Eric saves me the trouble of doing it myself." Eric's blood ran cold. How had he found them? Had he been following them all along? "You can try. Stop this," Melcher continued, taking a step closer. "The essence of the arcane will be mine, and with it, I will reshape the magical world as I see fit. You and your little friends are nothing more than pawns in a game far beyond your understanding." Eric gripped the staff tighter, his mind racing. They were outmatched. Melcher was one of the most powerful sorcerers in the world, and now that he had the essence of the arcane, there was no telling what he could do. "We have to fight," Lena whispered, her hand already glowing with the beginnings of a spell. "No way," Eric said, shaking his head. "We can to be him in a straight fight, but maybe we don't have to." He glanced at the staff in his hands. The staff of equilibrium was designed to neutralize magic, to restore balance. If he could just tap into its full power, maybe he could stop Melcher's magic before it even started. "Keep him busy," Eric said to Lena and Marcus. "I'll handle the staff." Without another word, Lena and Marcus sprang into action. Lena hurled a blast of fire toward Melcher, forcing him to deflect it with a wave of his hand. Marcus threw down a handful of potions, creating a thick cloud of smoke that enveloped the clearing. For a moment, they had the upper hand, but it was clear that Melcher was merely toying with them. He moved with ease, his spells sharp and precise, cutting through their defenses like paper. Eric knelt by the altar, gripping the staff with both hands. He could feel the power coursing through it, but he didn't know how to control it. It was like trying to hold onto a raging storm. Every time he thought he had it, the power slipped through his fingers, spiraling out of control. "Come on," he muttered under his breath. "Come on, work with me." Melcher's laughter echoed through the clearing. "Kai, you think you can stop me, boy? You were just a child playing with forces beyond your comprehension." Eric gritted his teeth. He wasn't a child. He wasn't helpless. he could do this. Closing his eyes, he focused on the staff, on the ancient runes etched into its surface. Slowly, he began to understand. The staff wasn't just a tool. It was a conduit, a bridge between magic and balance. If he wanted to wield it, he had to stop fighting the power and let it flow through him. With a deep breath, Eric opened his eyes. The staff glowed brighter than ever before, its silver light cutting through the darkness like a beacon. He could feel it now, every spell, every bit of magic in the clearing. He could see the threads of energy connecting Melcher to the essence of the arcane, and with a flick of his wrist, he severed them. Melcher staggered, his eyes widening in shock. The power he had been drawing from the essence vanished in an instant, leaving him vulnerable. "You little fool," the Melcher spat, his face contorted in rage. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I've stopped you," Eric said, his voice steady. Now it's over. With one final burst of energy, Eric unleashed the full power of the Staff of Equilibrium. A wave of light erupted from the staff, washing over the clearing and neutralizing every spell in its path. Melcher was thrown back, his magic stripped away, leaving him powerless. For a moment there was silence, then slowly the light faded and the clearing returned to its natural state. Eric stood there, breathing heavily, the staff still glowing faintly in his hand. Lena and Marcus rushed to his side, their faces filled with a mixture of relief and awe. "You did it," Lena whispered, her voice shaky. "Sure, you actually did it." Eric nodded, his legs trembling beneath him. "Yeah, Tira," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Tira, yeah, I did." As they stood there, the weight of what had just happened slowly settled in. The war had been stopped before it could begin, but the cost had been high. The magical world had been pushed to the brink of destruction, and it would take years to rebuild the trust between the academies. But for now, there was peace. Eric glanced down at the staff in his hands, the symbol of balance and order in the magical world. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. The war was over.